G'day, it's Pete here, and I'm back for the Day 5 report of the APBF. So today I wanted to go over the Australian and New Zealand results from Day 5. I've also got a bidding problem for you, and I've had a lot of questions about captaining and what's involved in that, so I'll go over that at the end. But before we jump in, the view graph schedule, the Australian A Seniors are versus Japan at 12:30, and the New Zealand Open are versus Singapore at 3. So let's jump in and have a look at how the teams actually went. Okay, so here we were playing Open round 3 up to ladies round 9, seniors round 4, and mixed round 3. And today, if you want to keep track, this is the day that we're up to. But anyway, in the mix, this was not a good day for Australia. Unfortunately, we fell away. We didn't have a win, so that was quite costly. New Zealand actually had a decent day. They beat Hong Kong and also won the grudge match against Australia. They won by 10 imps, so they're finding some form. But it's sort of at about this time that I like to try and reflect and try and work out what should we be targeting. So looking at this, for me, it's now looking like we should be trying to target placing third and bringing home the bronze medal. If we play well, we can get up there. 1 and 2 are starting to pull away. It's not unachievable, but we would really need to get some good results. And if we start getting those results, I might reevaluate where we're at. But currently, I feel like third's a good target, and hopefully bring home the bronze medal would be my goal. In the seniors, this wasn't a great day for New Zealand or Australia B, but Australia A had a really good day. So New Zealand managed to beat Korea and also beat Thailand just a little bit. They probably wanted a bit more out of those. Australia B also managed to beat Australia A by 2 imps, so that was a nice grudge match win for them. And they also managed to beat Korea. But Australia A had a really good day and started climbing up the ranks, so it's good to see that they found form. They had a really big win against New Zealand, so they got the right side of that grudge match. And then Taipei B, and they also had a draw versus China, which was very relevant. So they drew against the top team. So Australia A had a good day climbing up the ranks. In the ladies, Australia had a big win against India, and New Zealand also managed to beat Korea and Japan. So again, there's the spot where I'd sort of try and look at where should they be aiming at. They've got a couple more rounds than the mix still, but looking at those results, China and Taipei are starting to pull away a fair bit. So probably their aim would be to try and come third from this position. And into the Open, New Zealand had quite a good day. They had a small win against Indonesia, a small win against Taipei, and they beat Hong Kong. And all 3 of those teams are floating around there, so they would be quite content with what they did that day. Australia didn't have as good a day. They had a big win against Macau, and they also had a small win against Thailand, which they would have wanted more out of. And they actually had a loss against Korea, which unfortunately made them lose a bit, but they're still placed really, really well. They're up in third, can still catch China, but they will need a better day than what they did out of Day 5. Anyway, let's have a look at the bidding problem. So here you've got an 11 count, and you open 1 diamond at all vulnerable, and it goes 1 spade, 2 clubs from your partner forcing for 1 round, 3 spades on your right. So I feel like there are 3 main bids here. You could bid 4 clubs, 4 spades, or 5 clubs. But the thing that you need to discuss in your partnership is 4 clubs forcing? So is 4 clubs encouraging, or is it just competitive? The other thing you want to discuss is how good do you actually need to be to bid 4 spades in this spot? It'd be really nice to be able to highlight they've got a spade shortage, but do you need a better hand than this 11 points with a singleton? So let me know what you actually think you want to bid with those. And then onto the questions about captaining. Here are some of the questions that popped up. Basically, they want to know, what does a captain do? What if things go wrong? And also, yeah, sort of what function do I do? How do I help out the team? So in this spot, I like to break it up into pre-tournament what I do, and also at the tournament what I do. So before the tournament, the first thing I do is after the team qualifies, I really try and encourage them to get practice. If they need any resources doing that, I want to try and help them out there. But make sure that they're practicing and hopefully on a weekly basis, getting more experience, staying in form. The other thing that I want to do is make sure that they get organized with, say, submitting system cards. So for this, you have to put your system card in ahead of time, so make sure they meet the requirements there. Then when we fly to the event, I also organize a practice match. So in the playing area, they get familiar with conditions and play a few boards, and don't just have a couple of days where they're not actually playing bridge leading up to the tournament. Then at the tournament, what I try and do is the main things that I have to do are put in lineups and be there for score up to make sure that all runs smoothly. So also keep them happy and also try and minimize the extraneous things they have to worry about. Like if they need to know where the local shops are or things like that, I try and get that sort of information so that they can focus on the bridge. What I actually do for tracking data, I like to see how my pairs are actually performing. So there's two things that I really do for this. I look at datums for one. This is a general guide, but datums aren't always the best the best way to see how well a pair does because they're not always perfectly accurate. So I also like to look at the results and see if we won imps, was it because we bid a good slam or was it because it was a bad slam? Or if we lost imps, was it because our opponents bid a bad slam or was it because our opponents were the only pair to find this really good slam? Because that might not be reflective of a pair playing badly, but they would have costly datums in those spots. So I try and look at those sorts of things to gauge how well my pairs are actually playing. Then other things that I do is before I came, I created a system summary of all my opponents so that I look at what system they're playing, what leads that they do, what signals, what fancy bids they do that my players might need to prepare a defense for. So I just have this summary. So when I know which players are playing which, I show them the summary and they can look at this so that they're prepared before they actually sit down at the table. Then I also look at data from the opponents. I like to look at which are the best performing pairs for the opponents so that I can come up with an idea of which of my pairs I want to put against the best pairs of the opponents. Then I also look at which way the opponents are sitting because some teams don't change much up and they might just always put one pair north-south or one pair east-west. And half the time I actually get seating rights. I can choose which pair lines up against which and the other team has to submit first. But when I don't have seating rights, I can look at what I expect the opponents will do and I can pseudo get seating rights if they're one of the teams that doesn't actually change it up much. Another question was why doesn't the team just choose for themselves? And this is because I think it's really hard for a team to think of what their teammates were actually doing. So when you're playing bridge, you focus on your own problems so much, it's really hard to understand what your teammates are doing. So your perception of when you lose imps from what your teammates brought back, it's not going to be an unbiased opinion very often. So for a more even feeling about how that goes, a non-playing captain is very relevant for that. And then also sometimes teammates can flare up at each other, and if that happens, that can really be catastrophic if there's not a captain to be there to mediate and make sure that you can get the team back on track. Anyway, hope that clears up a fair bit about what captains actually do. Thanks for watching this report. Hope you enjoyed it and keep supporting our teams. See you next time.